Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the all-new 2023 Chevy Corvette Z06, and we've got some exciting news. Chevy just released a teaser video of what the exhaust is going to sound like. I'm going to include a link to that video in the description of this video, so quickly go and watch that so you can understand exactly what that sounds like. But in today's video we're going to talk about the specs of the new Z06, then we're going to get into why this car is so important, and then we're going to finish things off with whether or not you should look into purchasing one. And with all that being said, let's get into the video. Now let's get into the specs with this new C8 Z06. And first off, we have a confirmation year for production. It's going to be a 2023 because that's what Chevy titled the video, is 2023 Chevy Corvette Z06. So yeah, super exciting stuff. And as you guys probably heard from that sound clip, this sounds significantly different than the regular C8, and that's because they're using a flat plane crank V8. So the regular C8 has a naturally aspirated 6.2 liter V8, and that engine has been used in a ton of Chevys over like the last, I don't know, millennia at this point, right? Really good engine, really torquey, but it's just like a muscle car engine. It's not quite exotic, whereas this new engine is more on the exotic side. Again, it's a flat plane crank V8. That's what Ferrari uses, and that's what Ford used for the Shelby GT350. And the benefit of these flat plane crank V8s is they actually rev really high, which is great for horsepower, but then also it's amazing for sound, again, as you guys heard. Redline with this car is probably going to be about 8,500 to 9,000 RPMs, which, oh my gosh, amazing. And that's so much higher than the current redline, because the current redline is like, what, 6,500, 7,000, something around there. So this is going to go quite a bit more. Now, aside from having a high redline, it's going to produce more power. So this engine was actually used in the race car, the C8R, and it only produced about 500 horsepower, but that's because that racing series is limited with the horsepower outputs. That's not going to work because, well, the regular C8 produces about 500 horsepower. So what they're doing is they're increasing the power outputs substantially, expected to have at least 600 plus horsepower, which is crazy because the 458 Special produced about, I think, like 598 horsepower, and it was like the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 of all time. And well, this is going to be more powerful. Craziness. And so we're getting this, just, I don't know, so much technology, and I just think it's, I'm super excited. I don't know if you guys can tell. So yes, we're getting this crazy powerful V8. I guess the only downside is this will most likely be a little bit less powerful than the C7 Z06, but I would much rather have a naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8 to a supercharged V8, just from a sound perspective, but then also from a drivability perspective, because with that flat plane crank V8, they actually are pretty torquey off the line. Not as torquey as a supercharged V8, but again, just that characteristic of revving all the way up. It's just so quick with how they rev, but on top of that, just it pulls so hard, and it's just amazing. If you guys haven't seen, I'll include a link to this also in this video, I guess, my review on Chandler David Smith's Ferrari 458, where I drove that car, so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. It's just super exciting, and so to see that in a Corvette is amazing. Now, we're probably also going to get the same 8-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, which is amazing. It's really smooth, really quick to shift as well, so this car will be very daily drivable, and it'll probably be more daily drivable compared to the Ferrari 458, because the dual clutch in that car is very quick to shift, but it's very violent, whereas with the C8 it's just super smooth, and so it'll be pretty interesting to see the difference between them. But aside from that, with the Z06, it's going to have a little bit of a wider track. It's also most likely going to have some active aero bits. Again, Chevy hasn't given us a ton of information, but from what we can see with the test mules that are out there, it looks like it's going to have a little bit of active aero as well, and it's pretty much just going to be a full-blown race car. And so you guys can imagine, if that's what the Z06 looks like, think about what the ZR1 is going to be for this generation. But that's pretty much everything for the specs, at least what we know so far. So basically, we are getting, again, a mid-engine Corvette with basically a Ferrari engine in it, at least from the characteristics that this engine is going to contain, and it's probably going to be pretty affordable. So right now with the current C8, it starts right around $60,000. The Z06, most likely, judging by what happened with the last generation Z06, will probably start in the $70,000 to maybe $80,000 range, and then fully loaded, it'll obviously be a little bit over six figures, probably, you know, 110, 120, depending on exactly how many options they allow you to have. And so, yeah, those are the specs. So in terms of importance, I think that this new version of the C8 is massively important, right? The Z06 is always exciting, but again, this is the first time we've ever had a mid-engine Corvette, so everything they do with this is going to be exciting. But on top of that, I think this is going to be the last crazy high-performance, naturally aspirated mid-engine car that we're going to really get from a manufacturer, because everyone's going towards turbocharged engines and hybrid systems, and it sounds like this is not going to be a hybrid, and obviously it's not going to be turbocharged either. And so again, I think it's going to be the last time we're going to get something like that, and so I think it's a great last hurrah, right? But aside from that, it is bringing, again, what the Corvette has always done, crazy mid-engine performance and capability to a much more affordable price point. Because prior to this car even existing, right, if you wanted to get this kind of sound and this kind of performance, again, you'd have to buy a Ferrari, which the base price of a 458 back in the day was like $200,000+, and then if you load them up, right, to a Special, then you're looking at like $300,000-$400,000. And so the fact that this car is going to be, you know, starting at probably sub 6 figures and then fully loaded just barely over 6 figures is crazy. And I mean, even on the used market right now, you really can't find a 458 unless it's a salvage title for less than like $130,000-$140,000. And that's going to be, you know, more than what the total price of this car is. And so again, it's just bringing this crazy expensive performance and sound and everything to a much more affordable price point. So I think that that just is really going to shake things up. Now, I don't think it's going to really decrease the values on a lot of these supercars, because that's what everyone thought with the C8 originally, is that it coming out is going to basically decrease the values on every single supercar, because people are going to go, oh, C8, I can get supercar performance and not pay supercar money. But instead, what happened is supercar values still stayed high, and then obviously COVID hit, and then they went even higher. And I think that's just going to continue to be the trend, right? I think that obviously this will pull some buyers, but people that are buying those cars are going to buy those cars anyways, because it's more of a flex piece than anything else. They don't really care as much about the performance. And so I think that C8 buyers will be C8 buyers, and I think that the people that are buying the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris and all that kind of stuff, they're still going to buy those cars because, well, they want to be the person driving the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. It's not about the fact that the performance is going to be identical. But yeah, that's why this car is so important, again, is because it's just really, it's going to be probably the last of its breed. And then on top of that, it's bringing crazy performance that was completely untouchable to a regular person into something that is somewhat affordable for a regular person, right? Now, should you look into buying this Z06? And you guys probably already know at this point, the answer is 100% yes. I think that this is going to be the best performance car of the year, just because of what they're doing with the formula. Again, mid-engine, so it's going to handle great. And we already know the C8 transmission is amazing. We already know the C8 body itself is amazing. Like, the handling characteristics are fantastic. But then on top of that, it's going to handle even better because wider track. It's going to have active aero, and then we're finally going to get a more exotic experience with the C8 because it's going to have that flat plane crank V8, so it's going to sound just absolutely nuts. And so I think it's going to be the most exciting experience that you can get, and again, especially for the money. So if you can afford it, I would recommend getting one of these. And on top of that, the C8 has already shown to hold its value really well. Obviously, COVID is slightly affecting that, but there's just so much hype behind this car, and there's so many people wanting to purchase it, and the lists to purchase these cars from every single dealer are so long, right? There's way more buyers than there are cars. And so if you can get a hold of one of these, it's also a pretty good investment piece at this point, because if you get bored of it for some reason, well, you're going to be able to go and sell it probably for more money than what you paid for it, or at least break even. So I really don't think there's a way to lose, right? It's going to be an amazing car, super sexy looking, great interior. You're going to be able to daily drive it because the C8's already proven itself to be a great daily driver, but it's going to be a ton of fun as well. And then it's not losing value, so I mean, literally, you can't lose. But that's going to sum things up for today's video. If you happen to be stopping for the first time, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, comment down below what you think, and then I will see all of you in that next video.